Hey, it's Ryan with the Bluffton Buzz. Another great special local election edition. I love doing these. I'm here with Mr. Michael Moore. He's running for the first district against Nancy Mace. Michael, thank you for joining us, sir.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Cool. So, I want to start from the top. Let's get to know who Mr. Michael Moore is. Where are you from? What are you about? Let's learn about you.
Yeah, I mean, the thumbnail is that, I've got long and deep roots down in Beaufort County. We can trace back my original sort of low country ancestors arrived in the early to mid 1790s. I am the great great grandson of Robert Smalls from Beaufort.
Wow.
And I am running for the same seat he served in 150 years ago. My background, I'm a business guy. I've had an opportunity to run companies and organizations over the last 25, 30 years or so. I got an undergraduate degree from Syracuse University. I got an MBA from Duke University. In the late 90s, I was president of a software company that was really one of the sort of building the first generation of social media software. Then a few years after that, I was CEO of a company called Glory Foods that was in Columbus, Ohio, that we moved to South Carolina. And around that time, when that company was sold, I was on the board of the International African American Museum project in Charleston. That was Joe Riley, the former Charleston mayor's really sort of his capstone project. And when we sold Glory Foods, he asked me to come on as founding president and CEO to help raise the money and to hire the staff and to help sort of curate the museum experience. And so that got me back to Charleston. I had been bouncing all around the country, and I, just care deeply about our district, care deeply about the Low Country, and just really excited about the opportunity to put myself forward to try to serve.
Very cool. So, are you originally from here, or were
No,
you
no,
like
no, no.
born somewhere and then you came down?
Yeah. My parents left in the 50s to go to college. They went to school in Philadelphia. They got married. I was born in Philadelphia, and then my dad got a job up in Boston. So I actually grew up outside of Boston, but my grandparents and cousins and the like were all down in South Carolina. So I'd be here for holidays and Christmas, and so I feel quite close to the Low Country, to South
Very
Carolina.
cool.
For sure.
So then the only other point I wanted to ask you was what year, like around when did you move down here? How long have you been in South Carolina now?
Full time since 2015.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So you bounced around. Like I had other jobs where I literally would live on the road 40 to 48 weeks a year, living on the road, traveling around the country. And while it's fun, it's exhausting. I got to learn a lot of great places. And I think both of us landing in this area was a smart move. I love it down here. You know,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. So you got to come down. I came down right before the big COVID boom. I've been visiting since like 13, 14 when my parents bought a lot down here. And when I
Nice.
was traveling around the country, I'd always stop by because I didn't even know what Bluffton was until they bought a lot here. You moved down here for work, but what are some of the features of our area that you really love?
Well, look, I mean, there are some really important aspects of our community. One being, I think, our natural resources, our beaches, are critically important, and I'll talk to you about a concern as it relates to that around the environment, in the future. But I think the history is critically important. It really adds to the character of our community, knowing that so much history has taken place in the spots that we walk and live
Yeah,
and converse. It's just it's an important place. I am one who really resonates with being in spaces where my ancestors were, and so having a chance to be in actual buildings where folks back in the 1800s who were connected to me were, or being in physical spaces where where they were, just it means a lot to me.
that's really cool. I never like actually put myself in those kind of shoes. You know what I mean? Like I'm from the South Jersey, Philadelphia area.
Yeah.
My great great grandparents came over here on a boat like most other people, and everything's kind of new to everybody here. But if you got some long, long roots, that's actually a really cool way to think.
Yeah. No, my great 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 grandmother, whose name was Lydia Polite, she was born in 1796 on Ladies Island at the Ashdale Plantation there. She was,
Wow.
of course, enslaved, and so I feel really grateful. Most it's family search in the African American community can be very difficult because in slavery, just the records weren't there.
Right.
But we've been able to trace back, and it's an important part of my identity, frankly.
That's super cool. So tell me a little bit more about your professional experience. What have you done in the past?
Yeah, I mean, the headline is I've had an opportunity to do business on four continents, to lead companies and organizations. I've engaged with foreign heads of state. I've had an opportunity to serve in my community's Chamber of Commerce, the Charleston Metro Chamber of Commerce. Charleston Business Magazine, back a number of years ago, named me one of the 50 most influential people in the region. So, I feel good about the impact that I've had. I think, the opportunity to have built the International African American Museum, which is a really special place in Charleston, and one of the more consequential public institutions in the country. Frankly, I've had to have an opportunity to build that and to sort of have a hand in giving that to the community. I feel really good about. So I've done a lot of things. My MBA was in sort of marketing and general management. I started my career at Kraft and Coca-Cola. Kraft, I was working on the sugar-free Jello gelatin business. I was in the brand management side of things.
Yeah.
Then I went down to Atlanta to Coke, and I worked on Mellow Yellow and Mr. Pibb, small sorts of brands before
Yeah.
moving on to the Coca-Cola brand and have an opportunity to be a brand manager on that business for a number of years back in the early mid 90s. So,
Cool.
I had a shingle out and was doing some brand consulting for a while, late 90s. And then, like I said, one of my clients was a technology company, and I had an opportunity to join them to help lead that company in the late 90s. And then, jumping over to food company, Glory Foods, which sells southern seasoned vegetables, canned vegetables mostly. And so it's been a great journey.
You're talking to a guy that at no way did I plan this, but I worked for Vitamin Water as they were getting absorbed by
All
Coke,
right.
and
All right.
then I worked for Honest Tea as they were getting absorbed by Coke. So
Interesting.
it was really cool to
Interesting.
see that transition from two basically mom and pop companies and how you work into the Coca-Cola system. It was
Yeah.
interesting. So I got
Yeah.
to do a lot of cool. It was all brand. It was all experiential marketing and stuff like
Yep.
that. So a lot of really, especially out in LA and Orange County in California, really cool events.
Yeah.
Um, but it seems like you have worked with the community, putting the African American Museum together. What made you take that next pivot into politics? How did you make that decision?
Well, I've grown up knowing about my great great grandfather, of course, and knowing about my other ancestors who have served. And again, when I'm elected, I'll be the fourth in the last five generations of people in my family to serve in elected office from South Carolina. So I've just grown up with a real reverence for service and for the ways that one can contribute to their neighbors, to their communities. And so I just always knew, my undergraduate degree was in political science. I've always had sort of an interest in the issues and an interest in following the news. Growing up, my grandfather was one of those in the generations before me who served. He was born in Chester, South Carolina, but ended up in Durham, North Carolina, was very active in the civil rights movement, became a member of the city council there. And so he would take me to city council meetings and take me to constituent calls and the like. And so I just had this reverence again, this sense that serving others was a noble, endeavor. And always, wanted to do that, but because I traveled around the country, I never really felt like I had a base from which to jump into that kind of a thing until I got back to Charleston. And being involved with the museum, we had to, it was a very political job in the sense that we had to sell the idea of the museum to various communities. We had to go out and raise money from the city and the county and the state, and then from other private sources. And so, you know, it just opened the door to being in a political environment and to meeting people and to having a sense for the community. And then when I found out that I was actually living, I mean, I live in Mount Pleasant, was living in the district that had my great great grandfather, like if he was in Congress now, he would be my representative. So in effect, I had an opportunity to run for his seat. That just kind of pulled it all together. And I am running um, because as a dad, I've got four sons. My wife and I have four sons. I've got a beautiful 1 year old granddaughter. And it just became clear that the world is a little bit more complicated for them coming into their adulthood than even for me growing up in the 70s on the tail end of the civil rights movement. And so I just felt like I needed to do something like any parent, wants to try to do things to help their kids, to put their kids in the best position to be successful. And so standing on the proverbial shoulders of my ancestors, I just decided to jump in to try to make a real difference.
I love that. And for your great great grandfather, I feel like we need more movies about that man. Like the story, and I keep hearing other stories. Even when I talked to Nancy Mace yesterday, she has so much reverence for him. Like he is such an integral figure of our area that naming a road after him was not enough. After I learned about who he was, my dad starts texting me. He's because we both moved here. He's like, you know about this? My dad's a big Civil War guy and history buff,
Yeah,
so it was really cool to learn about that.
yeah,
And for you to be able to even to do this, I think that's amazing to be able to keep the lineage going.
yeah.
So to the communities, to the effect of helping everybody, what do you think the biggest issues that our communities are facing right now in our district?
Yeah, I think there's multiple levels of issues. I think at one level, so much of what we hear from some in politics, in my view, is designed to kind of distract and to divide people from sort of the real issues. So let's take that, put it aside for a second. The actual issues, I talk to folks every day who need to have a government that works and that works for them, and whether it's around women and women's reproductive issues, the ability for a woman to make a decision about her own health and her own body, I think that's a critical issue. I talk to a lot of folks who are still in one way or another kind of getting their legs underneath them post COVID around jobs and employment. People, the cost of living is high, and so people need good jobs. They need to be able to take care of their families, and so creating a more inclusive economy is something I spend a lot of time thinking about. I Healthcare is an enormous issue. We're the only major industrialized nation that seeks to maximize profit on injury and illness. And as a result, medical debt's the number one cause of bankruptcy in this country. Everybody needs to engage with the healthcare system at some point in time or another. And I just feel like we need to create a more balanced system where you can both get access to high quality care, but do so in a way that doesn't, create financial ruin. Look, the environment is critically important. And, talking to you in Bluffton, just a couple of weeks ago, I've talked about the environment in every talk I've ever given in this campaign. Now I think I'm at day 625 or something like that.
You're
It's
not
been a
tired at all.
yeah, no, not at all. Um, but I learned, about 3 weeks ago that of the 3,143 counties in the United States of America, the county that is projected to suffer the greatest negative impact by climate change is Beaufort County, South Carolina.
Wow.
And I've never heard our current representative talk about that. I haven't heard our senators, our governor. Like, we got to get serious about this. We have more skin in the game around the environment than anybody else in the country. And it just seems to me we need to, we need to get serious. I jokingly have said, they don't call us the low country for no reason. And every time a storm comes along, we get hit. Tragically, Hurricane Helene, a number of weeks ago, 46 South Carolinians lost their lives.
Yeah.
We got to get serious about the environment, and so much of our economy is connected to our natural resources, to the beaches, to tourism, to just our way of life, to our culture, whether it's shrimping or fishing. We just have to get serious about this. I saw a statistic that said that by the year 2100, that 8 million people from North and South Carolina, from the coastlines, are going to need to be, uh, moved from the coastlines because of sea level rise. And 2100 may sound like a long time from now. I know I won't be there, but I pray that my kids, I certainly pray that my grandchildren will be around. And, I care about the world that we're leaving them. So environment is a key issue. I think, uh, education's a key issue. We've got to support our public schools. We've got to pay our public school teachers. My wife, Carla, is a public school teacher. She teaches special needs kids up in Berkeley County. Both my parents were teachers. Three of my four grandparents were teachers, and my great great grandfather, Robert Smalls, wrote the legislation to create the public school system here in South Carolina. So I have a feel for just the impact that education can have on people, and I think we need to deliver consistently high performing education. Being in the bottom 40s nationally is a decision that we all are making that we can
Yeah.
reverse, and I think we need to reverse that. So lots of different issues.
Yeah, no, you hit all good ones. Especially the environment. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. It seems to be a concern
Yeah,
of everybody, and that's important to me to hear that. As somebody that I really deem myself as somebody in the middle,
yeah.
and I like to hear that from everybody. And everybody has mentioned that as their top concern, one of their top concerns. So
Well, let me interject here,
yeah,
because this is where we gotta go beyond talking a good game about things. My opponent, a number of environmental watchdogs have labeled her a climate denier and have given her an F rating around issues of the climate. She continues to support her leader, Donald Trump, who talks about drill, baby, drill. Like, we gotta get serious. This is you hit it right on the head. This is not a partisan issue. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what you believe. We all need clean air. We all need clean water. We all need for our coastlines to be intact. And I'd love to try to figure out a way to just sort of take this away from partisanship so that we can all, this is an existential issue. And
no, I
again,
agree. Like
our
what
county
do
is
you
going to,
think affects Beaufort County is going to be affected the most out of all the counties you said? Like what are ways that you can help kind of present a mitigation effort for our counties, for our district?
yeah, great question. I think one, we need to support efforts like the Inflation Reduction Act that Biden got through, which was the single greatest investment in climate in our nation's history. It created all kinds of opportunities to invest in communities throughout the country and created, guidelines for us to try to minimize, to decarbonize the environment. I think similarly the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act did similar kinds of things. We need to support at the federal level programs like that, but then we need to, dig in, and we need to support our local communities in whether it's, supporting them around beach replenishment, or whether it's creating seawalls, or whether it is, there's a whole host of things, creating infrastructure to be able to move water off, from flooding with pumps and the like. I think we just need to be serious about that. I think at the national level, we need to look at our grid. Well, even before the grid, we need to continue to invest in renewables, and making sure that we can extract as much energy as we can, whether it's from wind or from solar. We need to increase invest in R&D to increase the productivity that we get from those sources. We need to really invest in creating a smart grid. If you've got lots of renewable energy, when the sun's not shining, you got to have ability to access power. And so that's where a smart grid comes into play. I think even looking at things like modular nuclear reactors, these smaller nuclear reactors that get out there, we've come a long way since Chernobyl. We can, as I understand it, we can, store hazardous waste from nuclear power much more effectively. So I think there's a lot of things, but the thing from a business standpoint that I look to, I like to look to market solutions wherever we can on these kinds of things. And look, we are now, as Americans, you and me and everyone listening to this, watching this, we are paying the oil and gas industry $20 billion a year in cash of our hard-earned tax dollars in federal subsidies. I think originally those dollars were allocated at a time when we, strategically really needed to invest in those big Fortune 500 oil and gas companies. Well, they don't need it now. They like it, but they are making among the greatest profits in the history of capitalism. And since this is the Chamber of Commerce, I'll get a little wonky from a business standpoint. The dollars that come from the federal government are basically flushing straight through the P&L and going out to shareholders. That it is just a transfer of wealth from you and me, the American public, to shareholders of oil and gas companies. So I say, let's take that $20 billion and let's redirect those funds. Let's create pools of capital for entrepreneurs, for business folks to start companies, to innovate, to grow companies, to hire people. And let's do that in a way that creates green and blue companies that are creating actual solutions for a lot of these environmental challenges. Let's start jobs. About half of the companies and about half of the employees in the entire country are members of small and mid-sized businesses, but they don't ever get the support that Fortune 500 companies get. And so my thought is, let's take this largesse that's going to oil and gas industry, let's put it in a way that will not only create jobs, to innovate, to create new products and services, but also let's do it in a way that creates blue and green technologies that can help solve the problem. So that's a way. That was a long answer, a lot of stuff I gave you, but
No, so I'll take all of that and say, what of that can we apply to the first district? How can we, because I talked to Nancy about this too, because you guys deal with a big national level view, but we also have the folks at home, right? So, because you hit on a couple other topics, I would love more information about employment. How do we get better selection of employees? I run two construction companies. I'm over here trying to find just the basics, and it's tough. I talked to someone a couple days ago and they were saying they were giving me a good education on folks from other counties would actually come in and work here, but now it's getting good out there for them, so they don't need to come in here. How can we start drawing in using some of the things you proposed, which seem to be on like definitely a national level? How can we bring it down to that first district level, help the businesses, help bring the right people, get renewables in here, get the right things that you believe in? Do you have a game plan for that or idea?
I do. I do. So let's take that $20 billion I was talking about. Because we are disproportionately projected to suffer from climate change, let's take a good chunk of that $20 billion and let's direct it specifically to the first congressional district. Again, to create pools of capital where entrepreneurs like you and others can take that and can, build companies and the like, and let's create incentives. Look, in South Carolina, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago, the decision was made, hey, let's create incentives for auto companies to come. And all of a sudden, BMW and a lot of the automobile industry came to South Carolina because it was a business decision, a strategic decision to do that. Let's do that, but let's do it around blue and green companies in our district. We've got more skin in the game than anybody in the country, and we can be a part, we can be a leader in coming up with solutions. All we need are the incentives. And for entrepreneurs and for business people, a lot of times that's capital. you know if I said to you, I don't know how big your business is, but I was going to give you X million dollars to help build your company and to hire people and to create new products and services and whatever, you'd be able to do something with that. But oftentimes, particularly for small and mid-sized businesses, it's access to capital that's the barrier to growth. And again, acknowledging that half of the companies and half of the employees, over half, are in this small and mid-sized business sort of area. They need some energy and some attention and some investment
Yeah.
as well.
I'll tell you right now, I'll speak for on behalf of almost every business in this town and Hilton Head next door. I know it's a little different down here than Charleston, but so many great businesses, so many great ideas, so many things running that are great. We can't find the workforce to that's actually
Yeah,
the growth issue for us down here. So that's where I hear a lot of people just going, I work with a business coach and he said, you are going to actually have to grow and think bigger in order to bring people from other towns up here because he actually worked here before he went to Greenville.
yeah.
So he knows the area and it has been a struggle for us. So that's why I was really questioning like
I
how
think I think
can we
housing is a key issue. Having affordable housing, that's a
Mhm.
critical issue, and that's working with local developers and working with local governments to create incentives for affordable housing. If there was more affordable housing nearby, then that could be an incentive to create to attract labor that could be helpful to you.
I get it.
But folks can't afford to live down there. This is an amazing community that we all live in, an amazing district, and it's a high rent, kind of an area. We got
There
to
is
create
so
affordable
much
housing.
money that lives in our district. Like so many multimillionaires live here. And to that point, and I'm not a big tax guy, I'm not going to lie. Like, I want to keep my money, but at the
Of course,
same time, we have so much money living in our area. And then you mentioned we're what, 40th in education? How do we tax me for that? I want public schools to be great. Like, people are dodging them anymore. Like
yeah.
how do we get the school system better? That's a question I have for you. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah. I mean, I think we have to just be, now too many people are thinking about public education as a cost center as opposed to as an investment in our future. There
Yeah.
is solid research that shows that lifetime earnings, your accumulation of all the income you make in your entire life, is connected to, in many ways, to your education that you've had access to, in your younger years. And so when we don't deliver consistently high performing education to our children, we handicap them. So first thing is we got to deliver this consistently high performing education. We've got to fund our schools. We've got to pay our school teachers. My wife comes home and I see all the Amazon boxes of stuff that she's had to buy out of her own pocket, our own pocket, to take care of her kids. And God bless her. I love that she has that kind of commitment and that other teachers do as well. But like, what other job? I mean, would any of your employees on their own dime go and buy some materials or tools or
Nobody's
whatever?
framing a house for free around here. I know that.
It doesn't work that way.
No,
So we got to pay them, and then there's a lot of politics that now has sort of seeped into the classroom, and I think we need to be really careful about that as well.
I agree. I agree. I know we're coming to the close of our time here. Um, last year I asked for questions from the public and I got a great response. This year, Facebook ain't giving any love. I don't know why, but I got a couple questions. Again, no gotchas or anything.
Yeah.
The one, and I know we're short on time, so the one I really want to focus on. There was a girl, Krista, last year. She asked just such an outstanding question. She's in the recovery community. She had drug issues herself. She is a huge proponent. She's blowing up online. She was just on Shannon Sharp's podcast. Like, very
Wow.
cool. Very cool that she's doing this. And I'm embarrassed because I tried to get her on my podcast for a year and her scheduling conflicts. And she ends up on Shannon Sharp. Like, how can I not figure that out? Right. That's besides the point. But she is very, very big in this. And when we did this last year, she asked a question to one of our local councilmen, Dan Wood, and Dan connected her with the chief of police and got thousands of Narcan distributed because of her one single question. And I saw the power in asking one question on a local podcast that doesn't get a lot of views. This isn't Shannon Sharp's podcast, right? So in reality, I thought that was amazing that the one question being asked could help so much. And that's why I'm going to focus on hers again before we close out here. And she says, our area has no detox or affordable inpatient treatment for substance abuse. With the fentanyl epidemic at an all-time high, is there a way to get detox in our community? You have to drive over 2 hours with no guarantee you can even get the detox. How can we
Yeah, I
help
think
get better detox facilities in our area?
yeah, for me, this has a very clear answer, and it's called. I mean, let me frame it. Um, Back a number of years ago, we had an opportunity to opt in to Medicaid expansion, and in my view, we chose politics over people. As a result, I've seen studies that said that 20,000 South Carolinians are no longer with us because they didn't have access to health care. We've lost rural hospitals, physicians have left. We as a state have to opt in to Medicaid expansion. That's an enormous amount of money that comes back. This is South Carolinians' money coming back to South Carolina. Right now, all of us in South Carolina, are subsidizing the health care of other states because we've chosen not to take advantage of our own resources for this.
Hmm.
We opt into Medicaid expansion, and then we can support more rural hospitals, and we can support things like the detox care that you're talking about. I think it's critically important.
Okay. So you believe that the road to getting a detox would be more in the Medicare lane. You think that's
I just
the
think I
better
think the
way to
road
go?
I think the road to getting better health care in our state is I think look I support what President Biden did in putting a $35 a month cap on insulin and putting a $2,000 cap for seniors. I think we've got to use the purchasing power of the government to help moderate some of the insane kinds
Yeah.
of things. Just really quickly, my dad a number of years ago got a really nasty case of stomach cancer, and he was lucky because he had good Medicare, he had the base insurance, and then he could pay the various upfront costs. But his medication cost like $250,000 a year, and
Jeez.
he was able to manage that because he had good insurance and everything. But like I talk to people all the time who can't, and so people are struggling with healthcare costs. And again, there are about over 110 million Americans who are struggling with medical debt of one degree or another. I think, when you talk about, you know, young people and fentanyl and the like a lot of those solutions can come from a healthcare system that is more comprehensively funded. And I think Medicaid expansion is a critical tool to help get that done. That's not like a hypothetical, whatever. This is something that could be done tomorrow. Mississippi, North Carolina, these are states that originally opted out of Medicaid expansion. They recently realized that, hey, our people in our communities need the services that can come from this investment. And so they opted in. We've got to do the same.
Got it. Last question for you. I'm wearing this hoodie. It's our slogan here at Bluffton Builders, built with integrity. I always joke I liked it because it was like a double entendre and it worked, right? And then my dad really is a guy built with integrity, and so are our products. We do really high-end homes and commercial building. And I lead that to asking you, after realizing it's become a filter to my life and I question everything I do, is it built with integrity? How is Michael Moore built with integrity?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I mean, I am doing this because I care deeply about the people of the Low Country. In many ways, when I'm elected, I'll have an opportunity to represent people who are descended from people my ancestors represented over the last 150 years. That's something that's really cool to me. I don't know that this is a moment right now for lots of hyper partisanship, but my opponent, in her internal documents, she calls herself National Nancy. She has a quota that her team has to get her a certain minimum number of hits on national news. I'm just the exact opposite. I am doing this for the Low Country. And my team is going to have a quota to get on to get on local, media and the like. And look, I think, over the last 4 years, with all due respect, my opponent, the only bill she's gotten passed is to change the name of a post office in Hilton Head. That's it. In 4 years, she has, offered a slew of bills that allow her to say, "Oh, well, I sponsored this, I sponsored this, I sponsored that, or I got, this passed by the House." Well, getting something passed by the House is irrelevant. It doesn't impact the people unless the House, the Senate, and the President all sign off on that. And so, look, I'm here to get something done for people who have real needs, who are looking to a government. And I'm a pro-business Democrat. I'm a business guy. I got an MBA. I'm simpatico with a lot of the folks who are, on the chamber and who look to the chamber for leadership on things. But at the same time, I am really looking to make government work better for the average guy or gal, not just the 1%, not just sort of corporate Fortune 500 kinds of folks. So we're working hard. We're feeling good. We've got really good traction, and I'm excited to have an opportunity to try to represent the people of the first congressional district.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Michael Moore, best of luck to you, sir. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's been great. Thank you so much.
Take care.